My gavel. Missing a gavel.
Oh, I mean, I brought out. Is it gavel there? Gavel?
That's fine. It's hammer time. Boom, boom.
Mayor, sorry about that.
Don't even start.
Thank you very much, City Administrator. It is 7:05. I apologize for any delays. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's Dayton City Council meeting, October 4th, 2022 at the Community Meeting Center. Roll call, please, Ms. Meyer.
Mayor Baker,
Here.
Member Volter, Member Neary,
Here.
Member Neiman,
Here.
Member Kelly, Member Lovins,
Here.
Member Baszler,
Here.
City Administrator Fawcett,
Here.
City Attorney Edmondson.
So we're missing Mr. Volter tonight, but other than that, I really appreciate everybody being here. So now I'd like to raise for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you very much. This week on the agenda, we had two city council meetings in the last month. So mayor's report is light, and so light that we're just going to go ahead and pass on that tonight. And move ahead to the department head reports, which brings up the wheel. We have a new addition to the wheel tonight. Jared Barks, our assistant city administrator, is asked to be put on the wheel. He's got a presentation that he would like to be showing to council. So we'll pull up the wheel and let's see who we get first. Blue for police. Chief Hatfield, would you please give your report? Can't always win, Cassie.
There we go. You have a copy of my report, my monthly report. Nothing too exciting for the month of September. You guys have any questions? I'd be happy to answer. Nothing to add.
Do we have any staff updates, sir?
Well, Officer Kabala, she'll be headed to the academy October 30th. Pretty much have all her gear except for her vest. And the factory that makes the vest is in Fort Myers, Florida. So not good for us, but she needs it for the academy. So we did talk to them. They said they weren't impacted very, as much as the rest of the island. So they must be off pretty far. So they said it should be here by October 30th. So as of now, no, nothing else.
All right, thank you, sir. Does anybody from council like to address the chief? All right, thank you very much, sir. Have a good evening. All right, let's bring out the wheel. Jared Barks, Assistant City Administrator. This is going to be a fun one. He asked to be put on the wheel today. He's usually not on the wheel.
I will admit the wheel is kind of nerve-wracking.
I'm sorry. It's floor is yours, sir.
So I'm just going to do a quarterly budget review. I plan on doing this after every quarter. The quarter ended in September, so here I am. Just so we're kind of all on the same page and we kind of know how the year's finances are going. You can hit the next slide. So first thing is revenues. City of Dayton brought in $104,000 thereabouts more in revenue compared to last year. Last year it was 488,000, and this year is 593,000. And that was during the first quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year.
was
Next,
What,
I'm sorry.
what brought this financial?
So that's what I'm going to talk about.
What's that?
That's what I'm going to talk about.
All right, I'll be
Yeah.
quiet now.
Okay. Most of that income is going to come from occupational tax. So I looked further into it, and from last year to this year, first quarter of last year versus this quarter, the workers in the city received a 15.2% increase in their wages. Likely that's due to COLA being so high, cost of living. A lot of people received big raises last year. So my assumption is that's where most of it is coming from. And that was in the amount of around $60,000 extra income that the city got. It could. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of variables that go along with that. But primarily that's where the extra income is coming from right now. Overall cost comparison, every department, well, I shouldn't say every department, about half the departments went up in their costs, and that's going to be admin, public works, and code enforcement. Looking deeper into each of those departments, those are all due to salary increases. That 4% salary increase that all the employees got last year, we're just paying more in salaries, obviously, we're paying more in taxes, and we're paying more for the retirement costs. Police and fire both lowered their costs compared to the first quarter of last year. And that is due to the cuts that we implemented in this year's budget. We said that we were not going to do any capital spending in any particular department, and we did not do premium pay again, which was done in the year prior. So the fire department decreased because of that lack of premium pay, $140,000. Last year in the first quarter, the police department received 2 new cruisers at around $70,000. And then they also received premium pay in $87,000, which none of them got that this year. So that's why their costs went down compared to last year. You can go on to the next one. Operational costs. So I cut out all the capital spending, that one-time spending, to see what it costs us for the day-to-day operations of each of the departments. And that's something that I really focused on the budget of this year. So as you can see, all the departments rose in their operational expenses, which makes sense because goods and services cost more now due to inflation, and all of the salaries increase, which is a yearly thing, and that's normal. As you can see, the fire department is significantly higher than all the other departments, and that's just because part of their premium pay last year went toward their salaries, and so the city was paying for that salary increase on top of their incremental increase that they got, where none of the other departments got that. So the police department had the premium pay in the $87,000, but it was a one-time lump sum. It was not added to their salary, so we didn't have to carry on that cost year after year, if that makes sense. Okay. Last slide. Operational revenues and costs both increased over the first quarter of last year, which is normal. So obviously the revenues increased, like I said, due to the primarily going to be the occupational taxes increasing. The costs also increased, which is normal as well. In this particular quarter, the costs did outpace the revenues. However, next quarter, when I'm up here again giving the same presentation, those bars will likely be flipped because we're going to have the income of the property tax, which is where most of our revenue comes from. So you're going to see the revenues far exceed the expenses probably. Which would you prefer? Which would you prefer? Okay. And we can do both. We can look at it on a quarterly basis, and we can look at it at a fiscal year basis as well. Any other questions for me? Okay, great.
I just want to say, Jared, this is great data. You know, in years past, we weren't provided this data. So you brought that expertise to the table, and you're giving a lot of great information to the city. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Brings up the wheel again. All right. Come on, Cassie. I'm pulling for you. Pulling for you. It's you. Cassie, code enforcement.
So you have my report. s- Still a lot of grass, a lot of vacants. We are getting a little bit more aggressive with the filing the liens. We've been working on those. If you need to ever check that, it's on our lien holder notification. It's on our website. We have to, post that on our website. So we have quite a few of those. We're working on another top 10 list.
Up to 30 now.
Yeah, the third one.
Well, a couple of them transferred over, but most
Right.
of them are due.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's visible work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's about it.
We have currently, I think, 4 cases that are in the courts in foreclosure on one is 703 Boone. It's the small lot between the one we tore down and the one that was purchased. There's a couple others that are in process too.
Mhm.
So probably a few months away before we have foreclosure sales, but hopefully get those on the tax rolls again.
Right. And I mean, probably 95% of the properties that we're filing liens on are either people that are deceased, they've had no wills, they have no, executors or anything like that. And then we do have a lot of people that just have property that they've owned forever and they just kind of disappeared. So these aren't people in properties. A lot of these are vacants. So yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Patterson? Could you guys turn your microphone on? It's
Yeah, we passed the rental inspection ordinance, and I just wanted to get an update on when we expect to start doing those inspections.
It becomes effective on the beginning of the new year, January 1.
January 1.
We had a meeting a couple weeks ago, Jared and Cassie and I, and we brainstormed some ideas, and we got a line on somebody that we want to be this licensed, part-time licensed inspector. So we're in the process of putting that all together right now. So
Mhm.
we hope to maybe get him in a little early to help hit the ground running a little bit. So technically, it starts on January 1. There will be an education period, and then the actual licenses are not due until April, when the business licenses are due too. So there'll be a couple of months for us to educate folks about it and tell them that, hey, you got to have a license by April. It's April 1 is Cassie.
Tiffany?
Tiffany, remember,
15th they're due.
April 5th.
Yeah.
So they will be able to get their license for next year?
Yes.
Even though the inspection will not have been done
Yes.
by then?
That's correct.
But renewing it the following year would require an inspection?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Patterson?
It's going to take a little time to get that whole program running and working and kind of down to a regular program for all the landlords. So once it gets going, it'll be great. It's just, the logistics of all of it is going to be kind of a work in progress. So, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The work that code enforcement's doing with the city is making great changes. I'm driving around, seeing houses that were in disrepair from absentee landlords or whatever, and the work that Cassie is doing with Jay is making a major visible change in the city. And I applaud your efforts, and we are so happy to have you as a part of our team. You're welcome, ma'am. So, all right, there's only 2 left on the wheel. Fire. Red for fire. Sorry, Rick.
You all have my report. Not a whole lot beyond that, other than one change. We have our fire board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and it was listed as being here, but there is a scheduling conflict, so it will be back in Callahan Center. At our last meeting, Member Neary brought up that the building was complete, so we should start going back and alternating between the cities for the fire board meetings. But so we'll try to do that in December. So, not a whole lot else to report. We do have one. I've told you already that we have one's retiring at the end of the year, but I was given notice yesterday by one that is taking a job with another department in the area at a significantly higher pay rate. And I know at this point it's white noise. For 4 years, I've been hollering and screaming. And like I said, Jay and I have had a conversation again yesterday. So we'll keep figuring out ways to combat this. I know the cities just don't have pocketfuls of money to hand out, but we need to be working on ways to keep the people we have, because at some point we're not going to have anybody to backfill, and we're not going to have a full fire department. So. We do not. We used to have volunteers, but as they started dropping off, it became more costly just to get them, to keep them, because by the time you do gear, insurance, training, and then you may not have anybody show up. So it just wasn't cost effective for us to do that anymore.
One of the problems with volunteers, Chief, if I'm correct, is your ISO usually goes up, and so your insurance rates usually go up.
Correct.
Any questions for the chief?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir, for your time. Enjoy your evening. All right, Rick, no reason to spin the wheel. You're last. I'm glad that you guys enjoy the wheel.
Yeah, we're staying busy. We've got a lot of things done, I think, in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We're starting to get our roadside cut back. Alleys, we're caught up on our alleys for a change. And we're busy. We're cutting yards for Cassie, and got a little bit of work to do around the parks. And we're going to look at probably the middle of this month to shut the 2 parks down as far as water, Gilliland Park and Sargent Park. Sargent will probably do it in the next week or so, because I don't see anybody renting it now. But other than that, anybody got any questions, I'm willing to answer them. Because, I mean, my report is every week it's the same stuff. We got the flood wall cut. We'll probably have to cut it one more time, depending on the weather. It could be 2, but I'm thinking just 1. And we're getting our equipment together. We picked up our truck today that we had the new bed put on. And that looks good. So
This week we've been working on Belmont too. We have some dangerous trees there that are
Yeah.
being cut back. We're working with a contractor to get that done as well.
And we got most of that cut back before they came today. And they got the big pine tree down. Took them all day to get that one down. And then they'll be back tomorrow. And it may take them 2 more days. And then we'll finish cutting that back, and that'll be done. So, I mean, everything's going good. I mean, we're busy. And emails are flying.
How's your staff? They doing all right?
Yeah, we're doing fine.
Good.
Yep.
I see them out all the time. See them on Friday night
Yep.
at the final Fridays.
Yeah.
Good bunch of crew you
Yeah,
got there.
yeah, they're doing good. They're doing good. And like I said, we're getting things done. And city building, we got a couple more things to do before we quite make it in there.
That's fine.
Okay.
We're the least of your worries, man.
Oh, I know.
Take care of the other 5,000 folks.
But yeah, we'll get it. We're not doing too bad at all. But other than that, I don't have anything else. Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Lucas?
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. That concludes tonight's department head reports. Next on the agenda would be the approval of minutes from September 20th, 2022, the city council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Member Kelly's made the motion. Do I have a second? Member Neary's made a second. Do we have any comments? All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Now for the part of the agenda, I'd like to open up the podium for anybody from the audience who would like to speak to City Council and administration tonight on items that are on the upcoming ordinances for this evening. So this doesn't go into anything other than the ordinances that are going for this evening, just these few ordinances. So if anybody would like to approach council, the podium is yours. And I'm not seeing anybody take the podium. So we'll go ahead and close that out. Which moves us along to the ordinances. The first ordinance is the first reading of ordinance 2022 number 24, an ordinance amending sections 72.29 through 72.31 of chapter 72 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances regarding the establishment and operation of a parking violation and enforcement hearing board. Ms. Myers.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, ordinance number 2022, number 24, and amending sections 72.29 through 72.31 of Chapter 72 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances regarding the establishment and operation of the Parking Violation Enforcement Hearing Board, regulations for enforcement of parking citations, and the towing and impounding of vehicles, and appeals to the board from these activities.
And here is that we have had an ordinance on our books for many years, and Alex and I have been talking about it, and the words we had did not comport with the changes that have been made in state law. So this ordinance has been, thanks to Alex's help, has been revamped to make sure that we are consistent with state law. The other thing that we did in this ordinance was change the appeal board. Previously, it went to the code enforcement. We've had a couple parking tickets there. This is very complicated issues sometimes, and I'm not sure they, we're able to, and the police officers have a hard time getting to the code enforcement board. So we changed it so that the police chief and the city administrator now make up the board. This is consistent with what most cities do. No other cities in Kentucky use the code enforcement board. It's just because of the technicalities of parking issues, as well as the fact that it was hard to get officers here. When they came, they were on overtime. So this was a better maneuver for us from the city's perspective to change the board so it's internal through the police department. And then they have an appeal from that to the district court if they disagree with the decision of that board.
Apologize that I haven't talked to you earlier about this, but I noticed there's only 2 members on this board, which is an appeals board. What if it's 1-to-1 vote? Don't you need an odd number for an
When the one
appeals
vote,
board?
then the ticket, the person challenging the ticket wins. It has to be 2-0. We could do a third member if you wanted, but we're just trying to find a simple process so that it'd be easy for us to get together. I'm happy to put a third person on there if you want to do that. But even if it's 2, if it's 2-0, then that decision is what's rendered. And if it's 1-to-1, then the burden of proof is not met and the ticket is dismissed.
So a 1-to-1 would be just throwing out the ticket.
That's correct.
Is this standard procedure?
So the statute actually talks about the fact, the statute actually talks about how the city can designate who they want to be on that appeal board, probably for efficiency purposes. Our fiscal court is 4 members on it. Happens quite frankly where there's a 2-2, or quite frequently there's a 2-2 tie. You think that kind of defies logic, but that's what they do for a reason, is to try to reach consensus. City manager and the police chief know more about the parking in their streets than probably anybody else in the city. I feel like the appeal of going to a code enforcement board and airing out all your problems to a board could cause a lot of consternation. So that's a logic.
Understood. I was just wondering about the structure. I see the need for it, and I don't doubt that.
Some only have 1. So just one person makes it.
Is the sole decider. We have so much problems finding people on the boards. I just felt like, it'd be easier just to do 2 people that were always there every day, and we can easily set up the meetings. That's why we did it.
And this statute actually provides, Joe, also for the appeal to the district court. And then you can actually appeal it a 3rd time, which is unheard of, to the circuit court.
Understood.
So if a person really feels strongly about it, they can appeal it. I've never seen it happen, but certainly can happen.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. Mr. Edmondson?
Real quick, I just wanted
Yeah,
to know,
talk.
even just from Chief, maybe, how many parking tickets do we even give out in the city?
Chief,
Because-
how many parking tickets do we give out?
Yearly number or anything like that, but I mean, it's a pretty good amount. I mean, it's a close to a couple hundred a year. So we do pretty much citations due to, if you see on my report, parking complaints, I mean, we get 20 to 30 a month. So you would think about a little over half of them are cited or warned.
Cassie and police have really stepped up. These cars have just been abandoned on the street. So over the last year, we've really been hitting those, not, like we are the vacant properties. So many more of those are being cited and removed.
Sitting at City Hall 8 hours a day, I'm surprised about the amount that we actually have coming in from when I used to, be on council or not work at City Hall. And one day some lady came in and she had a parking ticket, and she was like, "Man, I got a parking ticket." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that." And she said, "All right, no problem. Here's the money." And then I invited her out to Final Friday. And she's like, "I didn't know that was going on." I'm like, "Great. Well, please come join the community." So as she was there kind of like sad, she walked out with a good feeling that she had stuff to do in the city. So I guess the moral of the story is, A, they're giving out a lot of tickets, and B, we're handling pretty well, I think. Any other questions regarding first reading? All right, next on the agenda is first reading ordinance 2022 number 25. It's an ordinance amending section 90199 of chapter 91 of the Dayton Code of Ordinance to amend the civil fees imposed for violation of the City of Dayton Animal Control Ordinance. Ms. Myers, please.
City of Dayton, Kentucky ordinance number 2022, number 25. An ordinance amending section 91.99 of chapter 91 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances to amend the civil fees imposed for violation of provisions of the City of Dayton Animal Control Ordinance.
Back here again, sorry about that. Is there another one on, or is that me? Yeah, turn that on. Thank you. Thank you. The county, Campbell County has taken over the animal control duties in the city now, as we mentioned at the last meeting. And as part of the interlocal agreement with that, we had to amend our ordinance to reflect what these new fines are for animals that are at large or otherwise in violation of our ordinances. So that's what this is doing, is simply changing those fines to meet what the interlocal agreement with Campbell County requires. I believe that they're payable to the county for, to cover their cost of providing these services under the local agreement.
And I just want to clarify on this. This includes cats, right?
Yes, but the policy is that they will not euthanize cats. They will take them, spay them, neuter them, and then bring them back. That's their current policy.
Is that a county policy or just a result of that grant?
County policy. That's always been the policy. I'm not happy with it, but that's what the policy is.
But even so, if someone has an unneutered cat roaming, which is what? $85 is the fine, I think.
Yes. It's a little bit
And-
more expensive if they're unneutered. If they're at large and neutered, it's
Right, it's cheaper if they're neutered, but if they're not neutered. Because I'm watching in my backyard cats hunting birds, rabbits. It's crazy the number of stray cats that are around. But if you see a stray dog, everybody's going nuts. Say there's a stray dog around, but stray cats are all over the place. So I'm glad this includes that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments regarding first reading ordinance 2022 number 25? Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is resolution orders. This one is for resolution order number 2022, number 35 Romeo. It's an order resolution ordering declaring 2 former police cruisers and a medium-duty truck as surplus property and authorizing the mayor to sell or otherwise dispose of this property as permitted under Kentucky law. For this resolution, I will need a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
That was quick. Member Neiman's made the motion. Member Baser made a second. Do we have any comments regarding 2022 number 35 Romeo? Roll call, please.
Member Kelly?
Aye.
Member Lovins?
Aye.
Member Baszler?
Aye.
Member Neary? Member Neiman?
Aye.
The ayes have it unanimously. Next, we will have a discussion. And as you can hear, as we are trying to have this meeting with video and audio clarity, we're having a little bit of difficulties, some fuzziness, some background noise. In years past, I remember when I first started watching city council meetings, you couldn't hear anybody. I mean, it was nobody. And I think we've made great strides in the last couple of years as far as these microphones. I'm sure I'm coming across fine right now. As far as putting these things on YouTube, putting these things on Facebook, as soon as we're doing them, but it's still a challenge because we have this background noise, this fuzzy. So it was brought to our attention that they would like to have a discussion, that City Council would like to have a discussion regarding audio, video quality, and presenting that to our constituents. So the discussion's here. Floor is open.
I'm kind of do a little background. And
Yeah,
also
go for it.
I have an expert here to kind of help us with this conversation. So
Expert.
So when we redid this building, we used ARPA funds. We had, most of the money went into the actual remodel and carpet and all the things here. So we only had a little bit of money left for our sound system and our camera system. So the cameras are working fine. We're talking about getting another camera so we can actually see people at the podium. But we continue to have problems with this wireless technology. Initially, it was pretty good, and we had more than enough speakers, and they're slowly conking out. Unfortunately, too, because the supply chain, so things are made in China, it's hard to get replacements. So we have an expert in town, Jerry Huntley, who lives on Manhattan Boulevard, and he's the vice president of a company that specializes in sound systems. He does this for cities, nonprofits, corporations in the region, around the country, and we've asked him to come here. He's the one who helped us with the camera and some of the technology we have there. He didn't help us with this. We had bought this before we got Jerry involved in the process. I'm sure he would not have recommended them. But anyway, what we're looking at is, do we go away from this wireless system, which has its problems, and go with a wired system? And with that said, Jerry, if you wouldn't mind, ask Jerry actually to put together a proposal system he thinks will solve the problem that you're hearing right now.
Thanks, Jay. Just to give you a little idea as to why these are not working, the way they were originally intended to work is because the FCC about 3 years ago passed some new regulations, sold off some of the 500 and 600 megahertz band to T-Mobile, which is now where 5G resides. So if you were out in the country and no 5G towers, these might work fine. Under the circumstances, they're not going to work in a highly populated area with 5G. Some of the frequencies will, some of them won't. And the biggest thing that you're finding here is if you turn one on at a time, you get pretty good results. You turn multiples on at a time to try to have cross dialect with each other, cross communication with each other, and it just drops off because of the amount of bandwidth. And without getting real into it, an inexpensive wireless mic has bandwidth of this. A new digital that's about $3,000 a piece has it like this. So I can take the same amount of bandwidth and put 30 microphones where I could only put 4 of what you have existing. That said, you cannot get wireless microphones. Jay mentioned that. We're looking mid to end of 2023. I have 60 some units on order now for St. Elizabeth Hospital, P&G, and the list goes on, that are being patient. but they're just not available. With that said, my solution would be to, and I've discussed with Jay, is to put a rolling cart back in your control room. We would run some lines up and over and put in a 12 input panel for microphones on the side, actually 11. That would give us the 10 microphones here plus one plus the TV. Okay, I want to get the audio from the TV into your sound system as well. There's a smart brain, and I've highlighted everything in your proposal that you would have. One switch turns everything on, turns everything off. I have the Shure microphones, which is a hardwired microphone. Jared's going to have to take the time once before you guys get here to run a cable across, plug it in for each of the 11 microphones that you'll be utilizing. Going to look very similar to this, only with the wire coming out. At that point, back in the room, you're going to have a piece of equipment called a Biamp Tessera, which is the brains of the system. It's a digital 12 in, 8 out, which why we want 12 in is so that we can have all the mic inputs plus the TV. The 8 out, we're going to utilize right now 4. I'm going to set up a pair of speakers, line array speakers on this wall, one there, that's going to let everybody hear what's coming through the TV and each of the microphones. The digital processor also is what we call a smart mixer. We can all have our microphones turned on and it will keep them in muted state until we talk. I can at that point set how many I want to talk at a time. And then I can also give Mr. Baker, being the mayor, a ride over to where when he speaks, I can either have everybody turn down 6 dB or I can mute their microphones. Just by a click of a switch, we'll set all those settings. I'll get with Jay, get with council, see how they want to do that. Also in that room, Jared would have a little, it's called a Tech One. It's just a little remote control touch panel that will allow him that if we want to turn Jay down, because Jay seems, most people do, okay. He'll have the ability to literally call up mic 1, mic 7, whatever Jay's on, literally turn that particular one up or down accordingly as needed and set the volume level of the TV as needed. Full 12 inputs again. On the output side, you'll have the left and right speakers. I also want to have a direct feed come out of that and go into your streaming system that we have set up. That's going to cure all of the issues with any kind of, noise, distortion, whatever, if it's a direct feed. The only thing that you do have to, and I mentioned this to Jay earlier, if Scott and whoever, let's say that Scott and I are sitting beside each other, if I want to whisper something to him, I'm going to set it up as I have a cough switch, he has a cough switch. We both need to have our push button activated, cough switch on, if we do not want to be heard. Okay? You want a button for home?
But the good thing is right now we got to push this button to speak. We don't have to do that anymore, right?
I can set it up either or. I can make it to where it's a push to touch. I can set it to where it's a momentary push to touch where you have to hold it down. Or I can set all of them on with the automatic gating. And then it's just and it comes back on. That is the easiest. That's why you're paying a little more for the digital processor. That is what we call the smart processor. That said, I did put together a quick proposal to do what they are wanting to do with 11 microphones, mounting the TV on the wall, getting the audio back for that, adding another camera. We're under that $14,000, $14,500 price range. But I'll be happy to leave this here for you guys. I put it together. It's got the lit and stuff in it. I'll give it to Jay. Feel free to review it. I'm here local. I'll come back anytime you want, et cetera. Yes, Jay.
Before you step down, you talk was one of the council. talked about whether we could put speakers from the ceiling, like you see some places. About that issue.
Okay. Yes, I do boardrooms for St. Elizabeth. I've probably done 65 boardrooms, huddle rooms, training rooms during COVID. What you get into is I do have technology that is out there that I could put a microphone at this point, a microphone at that point. They're about this big and square. They're called smart intelligent mics. They have lobes in them. However, the processor and the speaker arrays to do those work very, very well for the output going to the stream. If you want to hear Scott's voice, and I'm sorry for picking on you, Scott, here, but if we want to hear Scott's voice in the room coming off of this microphone, we have to put in a system that has what is called AEC, acoustical echo cancellation. That jumps the price to over $22,000 to $25,000 by the time we get the 11 microphones in there. Does it work? On a scale of 1 to 10, about a 6.5 to 7. What I'm proposing is dead on going to work perfect every time at half the cost. Okay? The other thing is, if I take and get a little better quality with the drop down microphones, then you've always got some kid, depending upon what the council decides to do with the building, if you decide to rent the building out, if you decide to have, whatever classes or anything in here, you have the possibility of obviously the microphones getting damaged, or, all it takes is somebody to go bang with it or hit it with a ball or whatever, and it's done. So that's why we decided, and again, it puts a little more work on Jared. He's going to have to get here probably 20 to 25 minutes ahead of time, take time to set up, but at that point in time, it's pretty much flawless. Any questions that I can answer?
Do you think that these microphones might work at a better frequency, or have we tried that?
The frequencies that you have in here, if you were only using 4, would work fine. It's when you start utilizing more, yes.
I feel like we only use like 2 at a time. I don't know. Just curious.
As you can see, the problem we've got is if you take them away and get rid of them, as soon as I have the microphone turned on, it's taking that much of bandwidth. Okay? As soon as you're doing it, then I've got cross modulation. I don't want to throw physics at you here, but the way you find out what the third harmonic would be take my 51750. What's yours?
523.70.
523.70. You add those two together, you divide it by 2. That gives you what's called the first harmonic frequency. I cannot use that frequency then on every other microphone. And where it gets difficult is you have to do that for every combination. That's why the newer microphones are digital, and instead of taking this much bandwidth, take that much bandwidth. So that we can do, I've got 60 wireless microphones in one application. But again, they're $2,800 a piece, and the head end is amazing. So, but that's a great question. Jay and the guys here have tried changing frequencies. They've tried everything that you can pretty much do with these particulars. This is a $300 system for 4 microphones. It's you get what you kind of pay for them. I mean, and that's not belittling anything. It got you through in a pinch, and really was kind of acceptable until the FCC passed the last where they sold off the bandwidth. And just to take that one step farther, when the FCC sold off the bandwidth, then it took the TV channels in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area and threw those on top of us. So that was a horror story. I had 61 phone calls in 2 days the day that happened. So, but any other questions? I'm glad to help out any way I can. Of course, I'll come help set up the system, make sure it works fine for you guys. I mean, I appreciate everything you guys do for our community. I mean, it's a big job. I used to be on council up in Adams County where I lived, and after moving down here, I truly do appreciate everything you guys do. So I'll leave this with Jay. Please feel free to look through it. If you have any questions, contact me anytime. And by the way, I was in a hurry, okay, when I made this cover letter. It says COUNNCIL. I do know how to spell council. And it's not that. So, thank you.
I have a few questions on this issue, not necessarily for you technically. 10 years ago, we had the hardwired system when we were still in the old council chambers, which worked really well.
I put that in from American Sound.
And then we had Rick Lucas as cameraman extraordinaire. And then when we moved to the school board building, we ran into issues with connectivity because they'd have to haul it all down there, reconnect it, hope it worked, and then stuff was getting lost in transit, let's say. And then Rick wasn't doing the camera anymore. It was just the camera just pointing. And it got to the point where some citizens, Beth and her husband and others, would just come and videotape on their own little camcorder, which turned out better, actually. Yeah.
It's $100 from Target. That yes. And it seemed, I know, it seemed to pick up all the ambient sound, and we didn't struggle nearly like these things. Thanks, but it really was $100. Cam Miller told us what to buy. Yeah.
But since we're not moving equipment anymore, where is that old system? Does anybody know even? I mean, we just stopped using it when we got these microphones and system.
It was 4 years before my time. I don't know. I mean,
Rick, have you seen that amp and speakers or?
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it was there a couple years ago.
I mean,
the school board.
I'm saying audio wise, it worked great. It really did. I mean, we even picked up some murmuring between council members at times. I think that would be one option we should explore first to see if we can keep using that equipment. If it's, because it's not wireless, it's hardwired. So all these frequency issues we won't be running into. The second thing, I've had multiple comments from citizens about the camera placement. That when someone's at the podium, even with the podium over to the side, you're not seeing the person at the podium. I think we could move that camera up
We're
closer.
gonna have two cameras. We have that camera. We're gonna put a camera here too. So it shoots on the.
But that's a PNZ camera, point and zoom camera, correct?
That one.
I mean, he can.
That one can move around.
Right. So Jared from the control room could move it
He
to
can.
point.
So he can move it. Like if you're speaking, it could go to you, and then it can go over to Alex. It can go to any one of you all on the floor. But it can't get the person there because their head is to the camera. So we need
Right.
a camera here pointing on that.
I'm saying you move the camera up here in the center and be able to pan over to the person talking. That's,
You have 180 degree.
Yeah.
just an idea, but I think,
The camera's relatively cheap compared to the sound system. It's only $800, right? Yeah. So
Yeah. We got to do something because when we watch the council meetings online, half the time you can't hear what's being said. You can't see the grimaces or eye rolling or anything like that that's going on. But I'd like to explore that option to see if we can find that old system and maybe give that a try before we spend some more money on that.
Thank you, Member Neri. Oh, please, Beth.
Do you know where it is? Does that seem reasonable? Is it broken? Is it old? Is it?
Well, that's what we were just discussing.
Yeah, like, we don't know
Scott,
I mean, it's old. They probably don't have enough channels. Being able to connect it into our system would still be an issue. I don't know. I liked his proposal.
Yeah, good. Okay.
The
Well,
school
can we
did drop
not-
off some equipment that they found in their room. Tiffany, do you know what we did with that? Okay, we'll figure out what they dropped off. I think it was just some stuff that was left there a couple months ago. So
Can we test it not at a meeting? Can we not go through one more meeting? Okay,
we would definitely do that.
okay, good.
I still contest though that I remember watching the other videos from years past, and I still watch them for historical reasons, I guess I'll call it. The way that we're doing it today is leaps and bounds beyond what it was in the past. Tonight, go home, watch this on YouTube. You'll be able to hear me speak. You'll be able to hear each council member speak and that person speak. Yes, the feedback is bad. I'm not going to dance around that. It's bad. And doing this, that's annoying. And Joe never remembers to do that.
We can't hear anyone unless they talk.
Directly into the microphone. We get
We
a
need the upgrade.
level ears for everybody, right? Good. But the conversation's still open. Does anybody have any other questions about or comments about our audio video? And turn your microphone on, Joe. I know you're bad at that.
The next step then would be for administration to review the proposal and then come back to council for approval on the expenditure, correct?
Another, at least one more month with these microphones.
Wait,
Can you schedule one in the middle of the month?
A meeting?
Yeah, for that vote.
You always have a meeting scheduled for the third Tuesday of the month. It's a regularly scheduled meeting. We just don't always use it.
How fast could you get those?
That's something I'll have to find out tomorrow. Jay asked the same question. I got returned phone calls back on all the equipment except the microphones, and I should hear back from them tomorrow, and I can let Jay know as well.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank
Did
you.
did I mishear then? I thought you had mentioned that it would be the end of 2023 before some equipment would be available.
That is wireless.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Jerry was impressed. I knew the word lavaliers. I went to school for radio, television, television, but here we are. Any other questions, comments? I'll go ahead and close that out. Moving right along on the agenda, we have the city administrator's report. Mr. Fawcett, the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to introduce to you all, some of you have already met her, but I don't think some of you have. Angela Bainey is our new assistant city clerk, sitting down there. She's kind of shadowing Tiffany tonight, her first city council meeting. And in fact, tomorrow will be her first full week with the city. So Angela is learning a lot. We're throwing a lot at her. She seems to be catching most of it, so that's good. And but she hasn't really experienced anything yet because tax season starts here soon. So we appreciate her time and effort as a new employee, and just want to introduce you to her. Just update on a couple of construction things going on in the city. We have a repaving process underway now. Most of it is being the process of milling the streets. We're getting a lot of calls at City Hall. Angela and Tiffany can tell you about people. Do I have to move my car? And yes, that we have to move your car in order to mill the street and then pave it. But people don't have to move it. You know, you can keep it there at night and then take it away the morning before they come back. So they posted when you can have your car there. So it's a couple short days of pain, but it will be a nice street that will be long-term gain. So yes, so hopefully in a couple days we'll be done with that process. So I think they're almost done with the milling, and then they'll do the asphalt after that. Speaking of other projects, 4th and Kenton, Adlita Construction is supposed to start that stormwater project on Monday of next week. Once that is done, KYTC is planning to pave that section of the roadway from the flood wall to, I guess, Main or Clay. And then the bump outs, we're still waiting on Duke Energy to get us the poles we've been waiting on. They've told us that they're supposed to be here in October, and this is October. So we're hoping that as soon as Adlita's done with 4th and Kenton, they also have the contract for the bump outs, that they'll be able to move and mobilize immediately to that project. But that depends on getting those poles from Duke, which have been on order for 3 months. So that's where we are on that. So that's all really I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett. Does anybody from council administration have any questions for Mr. Fawcett?
It's a good question. I haven't talked to Mr. Stark about it. technically the road is not completely done, but my understanding is he was going to start it, but I need to have a meeting with him. I tried to schedule one last week. I couldn't get with him. So I'm going to have a conversation with him about that. As far as I'm concerned, the road is done. They're asking us to basically accept what we have is done so far. So I would, at the minimum, we should say it starts from that point on. So they just got an email from their the developer of the project, and they want to, apparently it's just some escrow funds that are being held until that road was done. So once those escrow funds are paid, I would argue that that is, the road is, that's the date that the 45 days minimum would start. So for that, I don't know. I'd have to check.
I know they're running into an issue down there at the marina.
Thank you.
I know they're running into an issue down at the marina, waiting for Duke, I believe, to take the power lines underground.
They were supposed to go down this week, and all the Duke folks went down to
Right.
South Florida. So it got delayed.
Right.
So they've filled in the hole, and then the lines are right there by the dirt. And so hopefully, once they get done in Florida, they'll be up here to do that first on the list.
Because they're also going to have to move power lines across here. That's why I was wondering with the Duke delays with the electric and the hurricane and everything.
Exactly.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Fawcett for his report tonight? All righty, go ahead and close that out. Now is the time that we like to open up the audience comments. If you have any questions or comments for administration and council that were not on tonight's agenda, so any grievances or complaints or praises, we love praises. The floor is yours. Please come up, state your name and address.
Loud enough? I usually am. My name is Dave Cubza. I reside at 256 Manhattan Boulevard in the Gateway Flats, right there. I wanted to commend Cassie. I had an issue with lighting. I have issues with the lighting of the building that I'm in. Okay. And to me, it's nuisance lighting, and it's dangerous to my eyes. It has uplighting, and it's unfiltered LED lights that have no covering over them. They're just unfiltered. And it's like, you remember the flash bulb? Well, maybe you don't, but I do. The flash bulbs when I was young, you see the lights after you turn away. Okay. And basically Cassie did some investigation and she found out that there is there's no regulations on lighting apparently. And that even though it says in this plan, the city of Dayton requires a lighting and plan design to be included to each site plan submittal. Apparently that's done by Campbell County, actually. It says in here, too much building lighting can be distracting for residents, so times of operation need to be considered. And I grant that. Not all lighting is bad lighting, okay? In the middle of July, we had a storm, okay? And it knocked out power here for a couple hours. Ever since then, the lighting on my building has been disordered. And it's a beautiful disorderment because the lights are off until 10:45. At 10:45, they come on. That's perfect. I can sit up there in the dark and I'm happy, a relative dark. But it also has a problem too, is that on the walkway, the sidewalk. And I'm sure you're all familiar with that sidewalk. And there's the driveway down into the parking lot. Well, there's that ground light that announces or advertise Gateway Flats, boutique apartments and stuff. That stays off too. Okay, and it actually stays off longer than the 10:45. It doesn't go on till about midnight. Well, to me, that's a public safety problem because from the O'Fallon intersection there, all the way down to my building, there is no lights. So the fear I have is that some pedestrian, maybe even including myself, will be walking down that sidewalk that's on the top of the levee, and they won't be seen by somebody coming in or out of there because it's so dark. So now I've been asked why I don't go to the management. Well, because I'm an observer of things, and if I see something wrong, I say them. That's not always appreciated, okay? Because somebody has to do something and react. So my relationship with the management is not good. So that's why I'm, you know, in general, I would say seeing the new development, there's a lot of lighting that doesn't need to be there. There's such a thing called light pollution. And one of the wonderful things about this city and this town and this area is it is dark. It can be dark along the river. And right now, it is dark. But with all the other developments, the 1,200 units that are coming in, I think the planners and all that should take a look at that. Okay. And this brings me up to another thing I'm interested in and I'm curious about. Like I said, I'm a newbie. I lived over in Cincinnati for a long time, but originally, well, it doesn't matter where I'm originally from, but I came here because I like this area. I was drawn to that building that I'm in. I liked it because it was modern and looked different. It's not like the garage door mansions and all that stuff that line Manhattan Boulevard. My point is here is that I walk around and I see in that by that Guyland Park, is it called? Gilland. You have that monument to the people of Dayton that tax themselves to build the levee. And I listen to people here in the community, and they talk about what used to be. And they talk about this place called Tacoma Park. And there's nothing that I see in this plan that says there's anything going to happen for the people of Dayton to have a place along the river, just like they do in Bellevue. Like Bellevue Park, that's neat. I was walking there the other day, and they had all these cheerleading squads in there, and they were all by the river, and it was just and I go, where is there anywhere in Dayton like that? Where? And I do want to thank you guys for the Final Fridays. I did go there in August, but I had a issue with that. There was no place to get a beer. And I thought, is it possible for me to go somewhere and buy a beer and come and drink it? Or does it have to be from a vendor? And so I'm sure somebody can answer that question here. So
I'm happy to answer that question.
okay. And I'm done now.
What's that?
I am done. I'm
Oh,
completed.
you're fine,
my,
man.
My grievances.
That's not,
and my observations.
asking you to drink a beer is not much a grievance.
Okay.
I appreciate that. So currently we do not have what's considered, the DORA district, which is allowing alcohol consumption to leave the building that sells it to walk around. It's something that we are considering as a council. We're looking into, does that make sense for Dayton?
Mhm.
I do know that at the last Friday, you missed a great concert, and we had Burkus Brewing brought in a beer truck.
Mhm.
And they said they did pretty well.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
And of course, there's multiple places across the street around town that you can go grab a beer. Just unfortunately, due to the laws right now, you can't carry it
Okay.
outside. But we're looking into that, man.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. And I do want to take a shout out to the Public Works Department, who, I don't know whether it's contracted or whatever, but there was, after that big blow in July, there was on Manhattan Boulevard, there was a street light that had its lantern, or the cover moved. And that was just done a couple weeks ago. So it's not, glaring at people as they're going down Manhattan Boulevard. So thank you. And I'm done. So.
Oh, appreciate the
Have a good
comments,
night.
Mr. Cubza.
Sure. Pardon? The community theme pattern book. It's on the website.
The design guidelines for all the
Yeah.
buildings on
So-
Manhattan Boulevard.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Cubza.
I am a little unclear because I remember a plan that I'm not sure what date that one was, that at one point the developer did have a city park or boardwalk or some sort of nice thing for the city. And then that just got, I don't know, omitted. I don't, what happened to that? What happened to the public space?
It's annoying, I know.
At one time, whoa, at one time there was a harbor, right? Or like, I'm not a harbor, but a pier,
pier.
a public pier with shops, and it was going to be like the new Newport Levee. And that thing has gone through like a million iterations, and
Yeah.
a million changes. And
We looked at this was before I was even on city council. I remember Catherine Hamilton Hicks and I looked at a pier that would jut off, kind of like Maysville. If you ever been to Maysville, they got a great pier down there. I mean, it's so big it can host a riverboat. That's how big it is. And we looked into things, and the money was just ridiculous amount of money. So I'm not saying that should kill the project, but that kind of put a kick in the shins on that.
Get Army Corps of Engineers approval for anything like that on the river.
Yeah, I love the Army Corps. They're great people. Thanks, guys. But there has been discussions about that. There's nothing on the project list right now. I would love to have something like that. That'd be great for us to go down, be able to walk out there and drop a line in the river and try to catch a fish. Go down there and sit in a park. It's just not on the project right now.
But am I mistaken that that was on a plan at one point, that there was public green space in the development, or no? Microphone.
No, I wasn't on planning and zoning or anything at the time, but I was paying pretty close attention to it. That was a proposal, the pier, and it was supposed to be right at the top of Berry Avenue here. But that was only a proposal, and as the mayor said, there was no funding behind it. It was just an idea. I think KZF actually did the design on it.
Yeah.
I've still got that sitting around somewhere, but it was never part of the approved development. That you may be referring to, Beth, what they're planning down at O'Fallon, where the Queen City Riverboats is. The plan that's been approved so far for that area is residential, taller, but also with retail and at least white boxing for any kind of commercial entity down there.
how many years ago this big meeting we went to.
Yeah.
And they
I remember that.
unrolled all the, right, Michael Giffen was there, and it was,
It was a city meeting.
it was a city meeting. Yep, and there was a pier, there were shops, there was just gonna be like this Shangri-La on the river, and then
It was beautiful.
and then there were rules about, it had to be single family at one time, right? Like, yeah, you weren't gonna have multi-units, and then it was all gonna be ownership, and it was all gonna be single family. And then like, they kept sort of, changing at these meetings. Yeah, like, so I think it was version, 72. So,
Well, at least with the Riverwalk down there that South Bank is helping us with, there's some connectivity to the river, limited. We talked about having a kayak ramp. I understand that grant fell through.
Still looking at in phase 3, maybe making that happen. I've talked to Mike Yeager about that. There's actually an old ramp that's down there near that SD1
Right.
flood area that might be able to utilize. So he's looking into that right now. So that's still a possibility.
I'd still like to see, I know Ben loves the word swale when I use it, but there's
Swale.
that swale at Main Street, right beside Tapestry, I think would be a great place down the road. It'd be millions and millions of dollars, but to build like an amphitheater similar to what you see down at Serpentine Wall to get that connectivity to the river. One of the big differences between Maysville and here, Maysville's water level doesn't change as much as it does here during flooding events because they have the dam so close by. Here it fluctuates so much. That was one of the things KZF talked about, is you'd have to have the pier so high and it'd almost be like 3 levels down to get to the river. But yeah, I'd love to see something like that.
Is it possible to even have that conversation now? Like, is there anything left that we could do that would be sort of like a public park / access to the river at this point? Like, is
I mean,
everything?
we are looking at it right now. Mike Yeager is looking at trying to do something that would access, like canoeists and kayakers to access it there. Right, it's right there, that swale area you're talking about where SD1 is. There's an existing, the Corps doesn't have to approve, can't not approve it because it's already there. There's an existing concrete ramp, and we're wondering if we can incorporate that into the trail system. That they're looking at that now, and so
But something bigger that, like he was talking about, like a,
yeah,
like
it's all
sort of-
about money. I mean,
Yeah.
with this, the phase 2 came in $1 million more than we expected. We're trying to get additional money from the state to pay for phase 2. So right now, everything is so expensive, and I think we want to get your trail done, and then I think at some point in the future, maybe you go back and look at that. But I saw those same KZF drawings. They're beautiful,
Oh, yeah.
but they showed trail right on the river and that nice little rounded thing there, that pier there. It was,
I don't know if like, you know, you could assume that developers are just going to take all of it and then that'll be done. And we will never have access and we will never have a public place
No,
because,
that's not true.
I mean, I know, I'm just like asking,
Well,
you know,
we're keeping the land where the trail is. It's ours. And so
Okay.
the only place where it's an issue is behind the apartments that first built, but we have the right to put our trail there. So, but we actually own the land everywhere else.
Mhm. Okay.
And I know was it last month, someone brought up safety issues down on Riverfront Commons, and we took that to pretty good heart. And we're working with Public Works on finding new equipment that can, I guess, bush hog that space. It's an investment, but you know, when we were given this grant of money from the state to put together Riverfront Commons, we took on responsibility to maintain that, and we are going to make sure that we do that. That is our responsibility, and we take that very seriously. So that's coming soon. I know there were some questions about that, and council people were concerned about it, and they should be. And so we're taking it very seriously. The podium is still open for anybody who would like to address council administration. Go ahead and close that out because I don't see many people out in the crowd. That is closed. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. Would anybody from council or administration like to address us with unfinished business? All right, closing that. Next will be new business. Anybody on council or administration like to address us with new business? All right, Joe, the floor is yours.
I want to commend the Main Street Board and Jared and Public Works for the Final Fridays. This is, like you said, Mayor, that was a great band down there, beautiful evening. And I know everybody worked so hard to put that together. And I think we have one more Final Friday in October. Yeah. Hoping that continues next year.
They will.
Also, the Civic Activity Board deserves kudos for the Fall Festival. And I'm looking forward to what they have planned for Light Up Dayton. I know everything all year long with the Civic Activities Board is a fundraiser for Light Up Dayton. And I think we had a good turnout that night. I commend them. The next council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 1st, which is Election Day. Number one, I hope everybody votes. I don't necessarily care who you vote for, but just get the voter turnout percentage higher for Dayton so we get more attention from the state and the county.
We want to check that. I thought that our meeting is the week before Election Day, but I may be wrong on that.
No, we've run into this in the
election,
past.
Election Day is actually the,
Second.
when the
Second
first Tuesday falls on the first of the month, they push the election day a week out.
Okay.
It's
Then
a
I'm
weird
mistaken
Kentucky
on
thing.
that.
Maybe it's a national thing, but so election day is actually November 8th.
Okay, good. Then we'll have our regularly scheduled meeting on the 1st, no problem then. So I
Yes.
know in years past, that's been some confusion. Should we have a council meeting on Election Day or not?
No, I agree with you 100%, but our day does not follow on election day.
So Election Day is November the 8th.
Correct.
Okay. Still, I encourage all the citizens to get out and vote because we need help from the state and the county, and that's what gets it when you get
Yep.
higher voter percentages.
They pay attention.
Two things upcoming this week: the senior picnic on Thursday at the VFW, and then the Battle for the Paddle. The Dayton versus Bellevue game is Friday night at 7 at Dayton, or at Bellevue, excuse me, at the Bellevue Tiger Stadium. I just wanted to point that out.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to challenge Mayor Cleaves over in Bellevue. I will buy you one dinner of your choice in your fire city if you guys unfortunately win, but you owe me one dinner at my restaurant of choice here in Dayton, Kentucky, when we bring home that paddle. So, Mayor, I'm watching you, buddy. Any other new business, council?
If we're going to thank people, where's Jared?
He's in his cube.
I like your month at a glance meme that you made this month. I love it. It's all sort of, you can see everything going on in the city. It's very shareable. So thanks. And thanks to Cassie for working on a long-term horrendous project. And I see you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Neiman. And we have a great staff. I mean, it's a family. It really is. We're lucky to have them. Anybody else for new business? Go ahead and close it. It's closed. Do we have a reason for executive session tonight? I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. Would I have a motion for adjournment? Member Neary's made the movement. Member Kelly's made the second. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? See y'all next month. Get out and vote.